Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've been in my house for a little over 6 years. When I first moved in, I was coming off a rough patch. A bad breakup, a job change, and a move across the city all happened within the same year. I needed stability. I needed somewhere quiet where I could just breathe and rebuild. And for a long time, that's exactly what I got. My neighbors on the left are this older couple, probably in their late 60s. Salt of the earth people. The kind who wave at you from the porch and ask how your week went and actually mean it. We'd occasionally help each other out. I grabbed their mail when they traveled. They'd lend me tools when I needed them. It was the kind of neighborly relationship you don't take for granted, especially when you've lived in places where you didn't even know the name of the person living 3 feet away from you. They own the property, but they also have a lower suite they rent out. A few months back, their adult daughter moved in with her partner and their young kid. I thought that was sweet at first. Parents helping out their daughter. Family sticking together. I didn't think much of it. But within a couple of weeks, I started to notice something was off. Their daughter, who I'll call Karen because honestly the name fits like a glove, seemed to have this need to be in control of everything. Not just her own space. Everything. Including my yard. It started one afternoon when I was out doing some basic yard work. Nothing wild, just trimming and tidying up. Karen came outside and yelled at me to keep it down, saying some people were trying to relax. I told her I was just mowing my lawn and that it was the middle of the afternoon. She told me it was too loud and to do it some other time. I let it go that first time. Maybe she was having a bad day. Maybe the kid was napping. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. But it kept happening. Every time I pulled out the mower or the trimmer, she'd appear like clockwork, arms crossed, face twisted up like she'd bitten into something sour. Then came the Saturday that really got under my skin. It was 4 in the afternoon, a perfectly normal time to mow your lawn on a weekend. I was barely 10 minutes in when I heard a knock at my front door. It was a bylaw officer. He told me he'd received a noise complaint about lawn mowing. I pointed out that it was 4 in the afternoon on a Saturday and asked if that was even against any bylaws. He told me it wasn't, apologized for the trouble, and left. He looked almost embarrassed to be there. I wasn't even angry at him. I was just stunned that someone had actually gone through the effort of calling bylaw services over a lawnmower on a Saturday afternoon. Around the same time, I started noticing that Karen never helped her parents with their yard. Not once. Her mom and dad were getting older, and keeping up with the property was clearly getting harder for them. So I started doing it. No big announcement, no expectation of anything in return. I just started mowing the lower area of their yard below the retaining wall whenever I did my own. It was small, flat, and took me maybe 3 minutes. It felt like the right thing to do. But Karen couldn't even let me do that in peace. She'd storm out and scream at me to stop, saying I was disturbing everyone and it was too loud. I'd tell her I was just taking care of the yard and that it needed to be done. She'd threaten to call the police if I didn't stop immediately. And then it happened again at the end of May. I was mowing the lower area of her parents' yard, same as I'd done for months, when Karen walked out of the house like the place was on fire. She demanded to know what I thought I was doing and told me to stop right then and there. I told her I was just mowing the lawn like always. She told me again that she'd call the police if I didn't stop that very second. Something in me just went calm. Not angry calm, just done. I turned off the mower. I walked it back to my garage. I went inside, then I pulled out my phone and texted her mom, letting her know that her daughter had seemed very distressed by the lawn mowing and had asked me to stop. I told her I didn't want to cause any problems, so I'd stopped mowing the lower area of their yard, and that I hoped she understood. No response came, but I meant what I said. From that day forward, I mowed exactly up to my property line, not an inch further. I watched the lower area of their yard slowly turn into a jungle. The grass got longer and longer week by week. Karen's parents would come outside, look at it, shake their heads, and go back inside. Karen didn't lift a single finger. A few weeks passed. Then one afternoon, Karen walked over to where I was gardening. She looked like the words were being pulled out of her against her will. She asked if I could start mowing their lawn again. I asked her why. She told me her mom was really upset about how the yard looked and had been complaining a lot. I told her I was sorry, but that I couldn't do that, reminding her that it was too loud and that I might get in trouble. She stumbled over her words, telling me it was okay now and that they didn't mind anymore. I told her I appreciated that, but that I wouldn't want to risk having the police called on me and that it was better if I just stuck to my own yard. She looked like she had a dozen things she wanted to say, but for once, she said none of them. She just nodded and walked away. But then today happened. I was inside looking out my window when I saw Karen outside with a massive gas-powered mower. She was trying to drag it down the 9 stairs that lead to the lower part of the yard. It was not going well. She nearly lost her grip twice. The mower banged against nearly every step on the way down. When she finally got it to the bottom, she struggled to start it. Then she spent 25 minutes on a patch of grass I can do in 3. She was red-faced, drenched in sweat, stopping every few minutes to catch her breath, and then she had to get the mower back up those 9 stairs. I watched her wrestle with it, slipping on the second step, grabbing the railing with one hand, and the mower with the other, pulling it up one exhausting step at a time. My hand was on the door handle at one point. I genuinely almost went out there. But then I thought about the bylaw officer at my door on a Saturday afternoon. I thought about every time she screamed at me for mowing my own lawn. I thought about her parents' overgrown yard that she let go for weeks without a second thought, fully expecting me to keep doing the work she was too entitled to do herself. I let go of the door handle, and I went and made myself a cup of coffee. I'm not someone who normally does Black Friday shopping. For years, I watched people talk about it on social media and thought they were out of their minds. Standing in the cold for hours just to save a few $100s on something? No thank you. But this year was different. My daughter had been asking for a big TV for her room for months. She is 12, at that age where having friends over for movie nights feels like the most important thing in the world. I've been putting it off, telling her we'd see, telling her maybe for her birthday, telling her all the things parents say when they're trying to buy time. Then I saw the Black Friday ad, a 65-inch TV for a price that made me do a double take. I showed my daughter the flyer and she lost her mind. She grabbed my arm and told me we absolutely had to go get it, that she didn't care how early we'd have to wake up, that she'd stay up all night if she had to. I looked at her face, all lit up and excited, and I caved. We set our alarms, layered up, and drove to the store while it was still dark outside. By the time we got there, there was already a line snaking around the parking lot. We joined it, found our spot, and settled in. My daughter kept herself busy on her phone while I drank bad coffee from a thermos and reminded myself this was all for her. When the doors finally opened, the crowd surged forward like something I'd only seen in nature documentaries. We moved fast, heading straight for the electronics section. And there it was, the last one. We grabbed it. My daughter threw her arms around me right there in the aisle, already rambling about movie nights every weekend with her friends. I teased her about homework, and she gave me that look kids give when they think you're being embarrassing. I left, and we started making our way toward the checkout. That's when she appeared. I noticed her before she even opened her mouth. She was cutting through the crowd with a kind of energy that made people step aside without knowing why. She walked straight up to us, looked at the TV in our cart, and without a second of hesitation, told me to hand it over, because she had seen it first. I kept my voice calm and told her that wasn't true, that we had been waiting in line since the early hours of the morning and had gotten to the TV fair and square. She told me she didn't care. She said she needed that TV for her precious child, and that it wasn't fair we were taking it away from a kid. I explained that my daughter was also a kid who had been looking forward to this and that we had waited our turn like everyone else. That only made her louder. She called me selfish, told me she was a single mother, that her child had been begging for this TV all year, and that we were ruining Christmas by not handing it over. People around us had started to slow down and stare. My daughter pressed closer to me and I could feel the tension coming off her. I told the woman I understood she was disappointed but that We had gotten there first, and there was nothing more to discuss. I turned to leave, and then everything went sideways. Before I could take a single step, she lunged forward and grabbed my daughter by the arm, yanking her away from me so fast I didn't even have time to react. 1 second, my daughter was beside me. The next, she was in this woman's grip, eyes wide, looking at me with pure panic on her face. The woman looked me dead in the eyes and told me that if I wanted my daughter back, I'd hand over the TV right now. The whole aisle seemed to go quiet. I felt something cold run through me, followed immediately by heat. I told her to let go of my daughter immediately or I was calling the police. She told me to go ahead, said that by the time they arrived she'd be long gone with the TV, and that I had better hand it over now. My daughter cried out for me, her voice small and terrified, and it broke something open in me. I dropped the cart handle and started moving toward her, the TV already forgotten, nothing mattering except getting my child back. And then a fist came out of nowhere and connected hard with the side of the woman's face. She let out a shriek that turned every head in a 20-foot radius. She stumbled backward, her grip on my daughter gone, and I crossed the distance in 2 steps and pulled my girl against me. My daughter was shaking. I looked up to see who had thrown the punch. It was my sister. She had been shopping in a completely different part of the store and had spotted us on her way to find us for lunch. She'd seen everything unfold in those last few seconds and hadn't thought twice. Standing over the woman, my sister told her through gritted teeth that if she ever touched her niece again, there would be more where that came from. The woman had hit the floor and was clutching her face, her shrieks filling the aisle. She threatened to call the police on my sister, told her she was going to sue her for everything she had. My sister told her to go right ahead, that she was sure the police would love to hear the part about how she had tried to kidnap a child over a television. Store security arrived less than a minute later. They had been watching the whole thing on camera and had already made the call before my sister even threw that punch. The woman was still on the ground, cycling between threats and tears, telling the security guards they didn't understand, that she needed that TV, that her child was going to be heartbroken. One of the guards crouched down and told her plainly that she had just attempted to kidnap a minor, that it was a serious offense, and that the police were already on their way. I held my daughter close while we waited. She wasn't crying, but she was quiet in the way that told me she was still processing everything. I looked over at my sister and told her I didn't know what to say, that I didn't know what would have happened if she hadn't shown up when she did. She waved it off and said nobody messes with her family, and especially not over something as stupid as a TV. When the officers arrived, they took statements from everyone, including several witnesses who had seen the whole thing go down. The woman tried to tell them we had taken the TV from her. The security footage told a very different story. They put her in handcuffs right there in the aisle. When they walked her out of the store, she was still shouting over her shoulder, insisting she was the real victim, that we had stolen from her, that her child was going to be heartbroken on Christmas morning. One of the officers told her that she had the right to remain silent and that he suggested she use it. The store manager found us a few minutes later, looking like he hadn't quite recovered from the whole ordeal either. He apologized, asked if everyone was okay, and when I told him we were fine thanks to my sister, he stood there for a moment looking genuinely shaken. Then he told us to take the TV. No charge. He said after what we had been put through, it was the least the store could do, and that he wanted to make sure our day ended on a better note than it had started. I asked if he was sure, told him that was incredibly generous. He insisted, and that was that. We left the store with the TV loaded into the car, and all 3 of us still a little rattled. My daughter climbed into the back seat and sat quietly for a moment before she told me she was done shopping for the day and just wanted to go home. I told her absolutely that I thought we had all had more than enough excitement for one morning. My sister suggested we all come to her place instead, said she'd make hot chocolate, and that a quiet afternoon sounded like exactly what we needed after the mess we'd just been through. That sounded like the best idea anyone had ever had. We spent the rest of the day at her house, cups in hand, watching movies and slowly letting the tension from the morning unwind. My daughter bounced back faster than I expected, the way kids sometimes do. By the afternoon, she was already laughing about it, telling us she was going to tell her friends at school that she had almost been kidnapped over a TV and that nobody was going to believe her. I told her to please make sure she led with the word almost. On the drive home that evening, she turned to me with a look on her face like she had been sitting on a thought for a while. She asked me to promise her something. I told her anything. She said that next year, she wanted to skip all of this entirely. Just order whatever we needed online and stay home to watch movies instead. I didn't even have to think about it. I told her that sounded like a perfect plan. I'm the younger sibling in my family. My brother is 2 years older than me, and we have never been close. Not in the cute sibling rivalry way either. It was something deeper and more uncomfortable than that. He's always had this attitude toward women, like we exist on a lower level than him, like our opinions, feelings, and choices were things he could just wave off whenever they didn't suit him. Growing up, I watched him talk over girls in conversations, dismiss everything they said, and then turn around and act like he was some kind of catch. I used to lie awake sometimes thinking about the kind of woman who would end up with him. I figured she'd either be someone who didn't know him well enough yet, or someone who had been worn down enough not to notice anymore. Then he met Riley. He brought her around when they had been together for a few months. She was 20 at the time, my brother was 21, and I was 19. From the moment she walked through the door, I liked her. She was confident without being loud about it. Smart in the way that shows up in conversation, not in the way people perform to impress you. And she was funny, genuinely funny. My brother walked her into the house and introduced her to everyone, already carrying that self-satisfied look he gets when he thinks he's done something impressive. Riley greeted us warmly and said how happy she was to finally meet us all. I told her I was his sister and welcomed her to the madness of our household, which got a laugh out of everyone in the room, including her. And just like that, she folded right into the evening like she had been eating dinner with us for years. My mom loved her immediately. Even my dad, who barely looks up from his plate for most meals, was engaged in conversation with her. I kept watching my brother across the table trying to see if he was treating her differently than he treated other women. And that night, at least, he seemed fine. Normal even. I almost convinced myself I had misjudged him. Almost. About a year into their relationship, I was lying in bed swiping through Tinder the way you do when you're bored, and not really looking for anything. And then I stopped scrolling, because right there on my screen was my brother's face. His Tinder profile. Active. I sat up so fast I nearly knocked my phone off the bed. My first instinct was to screenshot it, but I didn't want him to see that I had matched with him or interacted with his profile in any way. So I grabbed a second phone and took a photo of the screen, then I blocked him and put my phone down. I sat there for a long time just staring at the ceiling. After that, I started paying closer attention. Whenever I was around him and Riley came up, he would shrug and give me these flat, nothing answers, saying things were going fine in that tone that meant he didn't want to talk about it. But I started noticing him taking calls in his room with the door shut, laughing in this specific way that he never laughed when he was on the phone with Riley. And then one afternoon I walked past the living room and heard him talking to one of his friends. He didn't know I was there. He was saying that Riley just wasn't attractive to him anymore, that she had gained some weight and had acne now, and that he could find someone better without even trying. I stopped walking. I stood there in the hallway and felt something cold move through my chest. This was the girl he had brought home to meet his family. The girl my mom had hugged at the door and invited back every chance she got. And he was talking about her like she was a piece of furniture he was thinking about replacing. I went to my room and closed the door. A few days later, my brother knocked on my door and asked me for a favor. He said he had forgotten to bring a file with him and needed me to go into his room, find it on his desktop, and send it to his email so he could access it for class. He told me the file name and said he owed me one. I went into his room and sat down at his desk. I found the file, attached it to an email, and typed in his address. And then I just sat there for a second. I had Riley's email. We had exchanged contact information at that first dinner because she had mentioned a book I was interested in and said she'd send me the title. I still had it saved. I opened a new email from his account. I attached the photo I had taken of his Tinder profile. I hit send. Then I deleted it from his sent folder, closed everything out, and walked out of his room like nothing had happened. For the next week, I could barely sleep. I kept going back and forth with myself, wondering if I had just blown up two people's lives or done something necessary. Then, about a week later, I heard my brother on the phone. His voice was tight and high in a way I had never heard before. He was saying he couldn't believe she had broken up with him, repeating it like he was genuinely struggling to process it, going on about everything he had supposedly done for her. I leaned against the wall in the hallway and let out a slow breath. A few days later, he cornered me in the kitchen. His jaw was set and his eyes were scanning my face like he was looking for something. He asked me directly if I had anything to do with Riley ending things, telling me she had said someone sent her proof that he was cheating and that he couldn't figure out how anyone would have known. I kept my face neutral and told him I had no idea what he was talking about, pointing out that he barely ever spoke to me about his relationship in the first place. He stared at me for what felt like a full minute. Then he walked away. He was miserable for weeks after that, slamming doors, snapping at everyone, acting like the world had done something to him. I watched all of it and said nothing. He eventually started dating again. Nothing serious, as far as I know. I never reached out to Riley. Part of me wanted to, just to know she was okay, but I knew that would only create more questions. So I kept my distance and hoped she landed somewhere better. I've held on to this for 4 years now, and most days when it crosses my mind, I don't feel regret. I feel something quieter than that, something that sits more like relief. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.